Hello, my name is Tolg, and I exist, therefore I think too much. I'm experimenting with camera angles, I think. Well, not angles, but layout? So deal with it. I'm going to read Marguerite Porete, The Mirror of Simple Souls, again. And I'm on... I don't know... Right. Eagles. Alright, so I'm on chapter 23. Closest I think I might be able to get to a simple rundown is that Marguerite Porete was a nun in something like 1100 AD, and she was burnt at the stake for writing this book as a heretic. Well, she didn't write this book as a heretic, but she was burnt for being a heretic. I rant as I read, and ranting has me in a position where I cuss, so if you don't like that, go away. I think the goal is to be monetized, but for the time being, I don't think I will be, so maybe one day I'll work on it. That's the other thing I'll work on, is saying, The other thing is that she writes chapters with multiple authors. It's written in the style of a conversation between different entities, so a paragraph might be spoken by one and the next by another, and I think it's self-explanatory after that. There you go. So chapter 23 is how the soul is balanced between two equal weights, and how she is drunk from what she never drinks. Well, that just started right off the bat with crossed logic. That's bad. Alright. Whatever. Okay. So love speaks first and says, this unencumbered soul, says love, is balanced by means of a yoke. How can it be unencumbered and still have a yoke? A yoke is, I don't know if this is common knowledge. Well, I don't know what common knowledge is, but a yoke is essentially a farm equipment that you put on the neck or shoulders of a cow, and it connects to, like a cart behind it, or a plow behind it, and is the burden to help the farmer. It's the burden of the cow to help the farmer sow and reap the crop. So when anything religious mentions a yoke, it is the burden of the individual that is participating in any said religion to whatever the god burdened them with, but presumably to sow the seeds of said religion, so that the farmer, being Jesus or God, depending on the religion, can reap. So yeah, you can't be unencumbered and have a yoke. Unencumbered means and is synonymous with being free. Anyways, balanced by means of a yoke with two equal weights. It's quite a picture, actually. Be beautiful art if someone made it. That is, one on the right and the other on the left. With these two weights, the soul is strong against her enemies, like a castle on a hill in the midst of the sea. That's pointless artistic verbiage. And also, if you pay attention to feng shui or the art of war, that does not make us strong, because you have nowhere to run away to. And your resources are limited by means of the water. You don't have a field. That's a bad fortress. Which one cannot penetrate? Well, she's got that right. So there's that. One of these weights, which maintains the soul strongly against her enemies and which guards the gifts of her richness. How does it do that? That's a hell of a lot of work for one weight. Guards the gifts of her richness is her true understanding of her poverty. her understanding of what she is going without guards her from her enemies, which would presumably be after the is provided from her wealth, her innate wealth. So because she is delusional about being poor and does not know her own wealth, those that would steal it are thusly made delusional, and that is the weight she is bearing. That's intense. But okay, as long as everyone's happy. Oh, Count of Monte Cristo. Everybody's delusional about his wealth, and therein he has it. So I guess it works the other way as well. The left weight on which she leans at all times is strength. Well, no, she can't be leaning on the left weight if she is balanced between them. There's so much wrong with this picture. And also, if these yokes are equal and she is leaning on one, that would make the yoke unequal. Because she is an added weight to one side of it. She is taking away from her own strength. The one on the right is the high understanding which the soul receives from the pure deity, which one would have to assume is God. But at that, you could draw anything away from that at this point. Which these two weights, the soul is balanced. But that doesn't make... that doesn't make sense because I didn't read it right. With these two weights, the soul is balanced, which is why she pays no attention to her enemies on the right or left. Well, why would she pay attention to her enemies when they're not aiming for her? Because nobody understands she has value due to the fact that she sells herself as poor. Which is currently what the wealthy are doing. So, maybe they got that idea from this book. She is so deeply awed, says Love, by the understanding of her poverty that she seems to the world and to herself completely beside herself. There is a fashion trend, maybe fashion's the wrong word, but there is a trend of psychopathy in this nation and maybe others where people get a kick out of people not being okay. And it's sick. And so some people, get an egoic hit of, well, I get to be seen as a good person in this light if I say something nice towards this individual who's not receiving anything nice. While the other side of it is, oh, look at this person who is... I one day had a itch that I genuinely needed to scratch, apparently, and saw several homeless people and had money, so was doing rounds of giving people food. And don't applaud that. I don't say it as a means of seeking congratulations, instead to make an example of what happened, because I wish at the time that I had really cool words and was a very strong person, but I'm not, and I normally don't. So instead, I saw this gentleman on the corner, and he had a sign saying that he was like a retired veteran or something like that, in which war he had served in, and the sign essentially just said, please, anything would help. And I said, well, I got food. I can give him food. So I went to the corner store, which means I had to run 2 blocks and hoping he'd be there when I got back, and just got, I think what I understood to be basics. So vitamin type Gatorade and sandwich and fruit and stuff and silverware, and ran back hoping that he'd be there, and realizing if he wasn't there, I'd just find someone else to give it on to. And he was still there, so I was really happy. And I broke down and just kind of had an exercise. So when I say I broke down, I just doubled over and expressed to him that I was incredibly happy he was still there, what was in the bag. And then I looked up and I realized that he was surrounded by children who were younger than me, maybe teenagers, all filming him on their phone, laughing. I hadn't known what I had walked into because I was, buzzed off a run in my own mind, getting a kick about being able to help someone finally. And I think about that a lot because I wish I would have been able to look at them and be like, fuck off. What are you doing? But it doesn't dawn on me often that there are people that enjoy other people's pain. Even though, you do see these videos littered all over the internet of people getting bullied, people in fights, people filming the fights because it's a kick of energy rush. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just comment, I guess, for comment's sake. Lost the plot, really. Oh, I guess the reason I said that is because it says, she's so beside herself in the understanding that she is in poverty, and she is awed by it. She is in deep appreciation of her poverty. I don't think that would stand in the modern world with how people are taught to enjoy people being less than them. I don't think people would be able to feel this level of humble unless they had enough that other people wanted, where these other people would leave them alone on the supposition of, oh, they're great because they have everything I want and yet they sell themselves as less than, rather than they have nothing I want and they are less than. And she is so inebriated by the understanding from love and from the grace of the pure deity that she is forever inebriated by understanding. But she can't be an understanding if she doesn't actually have poverty and has wealth. She's in delusion. Which I guess would explain why she's drunk. Understanding and filled with praise by divine love. Cool. Sounds like a great place to be. And she is inebriated, not only from what she has drunk, so she has drunk, where the title says she never drinks, but very intoxicated and more than intoxicated from what she never drinks, nor will ever drink. Solid. Solid. That... Good stuff. So reason responds, and go back through any of the videos to see, but reason is born from human wisdom and never has anything good to say, mostly just asks questions because its existence is to understand things. For God's sake, love, says reason, what does this mean? That this soul is inebriated from what she never drinks nor ever will drink. It seems, says reason, as far as I can grasp these words, that it is a greater thing for this soul that she becomes inebriated from what her lover himself drinks. Lover is capitalized, so is himself, so this would presumably give reference over to God, as most nuns believed themselves to be lovers of God. And I guess, a handful of them very literally. And 2 chapters ago, she did express that she was implanted with a seed. So, she becomes inebriated from what her lover himself drinks and has drunk and will drink. That's too many expressions of, when they drink something. From the divine beverage of his goodness. So she's drunk on goodness. Then from what she herself has drunk and will drink of the divine beverage from this barrel. The barrel is not prior referenced. we are to understand that the barrel is his goodness. Maybe not. Barrel holds his goodness. Is she the barrel? Love responds, "That is right," says Love. "The greater part makes her intoxicated." The greater part of what? But not because she has drunk the greater part, as was said. But she is so inebriated because her lover has drunk from it. For between him and her, through transformation by love, there is no difference, whatever there might be of natures. Okay, so she is an annihilated life, meaning that she exists in a stasis inside of herself somewhere, presumably, or in a pocket dimension elsewhere, and her body is puppeted by God, and therein no one can argue against her, because to do so would be arguing against God itself. But this is indicating that in this stasis, she is drunk as fuck. And the reason she is drunk as fuck is because the thing puppeting her body is drunk as fuck. Because it is so good. Yeah, it's because it is so good. It's beside itself. And what's a synonym of inebriated? Beside itself in logic? Incapable of proper motor functions? Love accomplishes this transformation in her through righteousness. So, okay, this has nothing to do with her being in stasis, and it's not because of their nature intertwined. It's, well, all things are possible through God, right? Therein you could never argue God. Not saying you should. Case that breaks out in a fight. I'm just saying, the argument of an all-perfect being. You have the ability to say fucking anything you want, and it would be hard to argue you, because how could you argue something you can't prove in the first place? Love who makes her inebriated from the greater part of her beverage. So the greater part was that... Okay, so she does have a beverage. And I guess in the beginning it did say that she was both drunk physically and not physically. Or like she was drunk from having drunk something, and then also drunk from not having drunk something, because she's intertwined with God and using her body. So she's double drunk. I feel like she got date raped. And this is just a means of her expressing that through weird, schizophrenic, redundant, and cyclical writing style of just not making sense of something because your brain is trying to hide it from you, and so going over and over and over and over it instead. Never will it be otherwise. It happens that there are several taps in the one barrel, but the clearest wine, the newest, the most profitable, the most delicious, and the most intoxicating is the wine from the tap at the top. I think Donald Trump got his understanding of how to talk from this as well. The level of adjectives used. Far too many. Word count matters. So the top, everything settled to the bottom, is bad. Well, not bad, but less quality. Then that's not how it normally goes. So the top is the best quality. Not really relevant. But the more complicated you can make something, the more important it seems to be at the end of it. There is, however, an understanding that certain factions of the Catholic Church makes their own wine. So it's possible that she was housed in a place making their own wine, and she just got, loved the metaphor, I guess. Or she's telling on them and indicating that they make a side barrel of wine that they only use to date rape the nuns, and that's why she got burned. Conspiracy theory. This is the supreme beverage which none drinks except the Trinity. Okay. And from this beverage, without her drinking of it, the annihilated soul is inebriated. The intoxicated, unencumbered soul, the drunken, forgotten soul, very inebriated, more than inebriated, from what she never drinks nor ever will drink. I don't think someone in their right mind would write like that, but who am I? Just another person not in their right mind. Now hear and pay attention for the purpose of a greater clarification. In this barrel of divine beverage are, without fail, several taps. Okay, that's repetitive. This is known to the humanity which is joined to the person of the Son of God, the humanity who drinks at the most noble tap after the Trinity. Right, that was a convoluted subject. I still don't make perfect sense of it. I don't know that there is perfect sense to be made of it, but roughly, the Trinity, generally accepted knowledge, is the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost, at whichever order it so pleases you, I guess. Where the Father is God and exists at the top of the Trinity, presumably marked by your forehead. And the Holy Ghost is what was left when Jesus died on the cross. It popped out and everybody got a bit of it. And Jesus being Jesus, which could be equivalent to Mohammed, but that's an argument for another day. And then somehow she has tried to tie humanity into this Trinity, and I'm not sure where it ties into, other than I guess Jesus is exemplified as human. But if the logic stands that Jesus died, departed with his soul, died as a blood sacrifice so as to be able to dimensionally hop down to hell, then dimensionally hop back to Earth, run around for a bit, dimensionally hopping through destinations to fuck around with people, and then dimensionally hopped up to heaven to join the Godhead. That would mean that Jesus departed from his humanity, in that one cannot be a part of the Godhead, presumably still holding on to humanity. Which would then maybe lead into an argument, is the soul that Jesus shed the humanity itself? So is the Holy Ghost Jesus' humanity? Does that make Jesus a psychopath? Questions. And the Virgin Mary, who enters the scene for fun, drinks at the one after, and this noble lady is intoxicated by the Most High, because everybody is. And after her, the ardent seraphim. Oh, that's another thing in one of the prior chapters. She transformed into a seraphim. Or her soul did? Essentially, she got so abused that she phoenixed from it and evolved from one species into another, from human to angelic. Seraphim is a different species of angel. Can't remember hierarchically where it stands, but that's that's how she understands herself to exist. So after Virgin Mary, it goes, Jesus drinks from the top, everyone's drunk through God, then Mary after Jesus, and then she drinks from where Mary drank. And it goes on to say, on the wings of whom these free souls fly. The free souls presumably being, and I'm saying presumably too much, but I assume, are God, Jesus, and Mary, and they are free because they exist on the seraphim's wings. And it was this huge, weird, built-in metaphor where Seraphim has 6 wings. 2 of these wings are used to cover her eyes. And I can't remember the other wings in their role, but they do something. And, when she is in motion, she is doing God's work. And when she is at rest, God has the ability to access her. Or no, when she is in rest, God's divinity, she exists in God's divinity, but only at rest. So, on the back of those wings, God and Mary and Jesus exist. This is a very convoluted picture. I don't know that it's well thought out. Chapter 24, at what point... okay, so what? That was a very pointless chapter. Everybody's drunk. Why? No reason. Because they can be. Why not? Okay. There's no greater reason for why this happens. It's not a tool to ascertain something. It's not for better understanding. It doesn't even help with how anything feels. Everybody's just drunk for funsies, because they can be. Chapter 24, at what point such souls are in the righteous freeness of pure love. A different type of love is introduced. Same one that's prior been introduced, but different from just purely love in and of itself. So I guess pure love is free, but the other forms of love may not be. But only through being drunk. I guess that's the point. Can they exist in pure love? Oh, not a good look for the whole understanding that might be an allusion to date rape. Ouch, bro. So reason comes through and says, love, says reason, when are such souls in the righteous freeness of pure love? Love responds, when they possess neither desire nor feeling, nor at any time affection of spirit. That's the annihilated life. They don't possess anything because they're annihilated. But apparently they're drunk. They're annihilated and drunk. A lot of people would think that is the way to be, so I guess she did too. For these things would enslave them because it is too far from the peace of freeness where few folk allow themselves to remain. I don't think that's an allowance of their own doing. Also, these souls, says love, do nothing which would be contrary to the peace of the being of their interior. I assume that's the stasis that they're held into. And the reason they would not contrast that stasis is because God is all-knowing and all-being, and yeah. And so they carry in peace the ordinance of love. Such persons are so filled that they possess the divine Son within themselves. Okay. Divine Son hasn't necessarily been introduced prior. If it has, I may have just read over it, but I feel like having a nuclear explosion inside of you is not a good look. Or a dying star. Bad time. Sounds like bad time. But who am I? I don't know. Without begging for anything beyond themselves, by which they can guard a purity of heart. Well, I guess, having an explosion inside of you would totally work to guard that heart. No one would want to come close. And no others than they, says love, have understanding of the greater part. Okay, so the greater part is alluded to here as well, and she is drinking of the greater part. And greater part of what? Greater part of God? I would assume, but the greater part is not capitalized, so it's not a proper noun. Making it that it has to be a greater part of something which has not been referenced. And if they did not have understanding of it, they could beg for the lesser part. And still they would not have their sufficiency. I presume because it's lesser. Now I'm confused as to whether it does pertain to God, because God is ineffable, even recognized in this book as ineffable, and no one can understand God. So no one would have understanding of it, even the seraphim or annihilated soul life. So how does the annihilated life drink from the greater part? Or can you be drunk off of it without understanding it? Wasn't it? Lordy, lordy, lordy. Such souls are alone in all things, I'd say, and common in all things. The souls that have the lesser part and lack understanding for God are very common and very alone. Okay. For they do not encumber their being on account of something which might happen to them. If they don't encumber based on a future event that may or may not happen, does that not mean that they are also unencumbered? Or is it not good simply that you are unencumbered, but that you are specifically unencumbered in a way that is contrasted by wearing a yoke? Ooh, this is all crossing itself out immediately. For as complexity as the sun has... I did not say that correctly, sorry. For as completely as the sun has light from God. Well, that's just poor science, but okay. And shines on all things without taking any impurity into it. Bad science. So also such souls have their being from God and in God. Which would imply that one could take impurity from God. Weird. Without taking impurity into themselves on account of things which they might see or hear outside themselves. How do they see or hear anything outside themselves if they exist drunkenly in a stasis inside of themselves and God is operating their body? What? A vegetative state where they can still observe? But the stasis would imply not. Count me motherfucking confused. Okay. So that was 23 and 24. All fun. I remain confused. And of the impression that Marguerite Porete is not well. And I could be confused because, as she would say, I am working through reason, built off of earthly experience, and I could never know God. Or I'm confused because she's confused. And I, egoically probably would love to side with the latter. I think she's largely confused. So I hope you have a good night. Rest well. Goodbye.